You're at a diner. The server brings your burger and fries, and without thinking, you reach for that familiar red bottle. You flip open the cap, give it a shake, and squeeze a generous puddle of ketchup onto your plate. Sweet, tangy, perfect. But here's something that might surprise you. That ketchup you just squeezed? It started as fermented fish guts. For over 1,000 years, ketchup had nothing to do with tomatoes. It was a salty fermented sauce made from fish intestines, and it came from China, not America. And the reason tomatoes are in ketchup now? Pure accident. A desperate attempt to copy something Americans couldn't import anymore. So how did fermented fish sauce become sweet tomato ketchup? What happened during those 300 years? And why does something with such a weird history taste so normal today? Let's explore the process. Ketchup's story starts in southern China, around the 17th century. The word comes from the Hokkien Chinese term Ketchup, which referred to a fermented fish sauce. Think of it like a thinner, saltier version of the fish sauce still used in Southeast Asian cooking. This original ketchup was made by fermenting fish, usually anchovies or shellfish, with salt and spices. The mixture sat in jars for weeks or months. The fish broke down into a dark salty liquid packed with umami. No tomatoes, no sweetness, just fermented funk. British sailors encountered this sauce in Southeast Asian ports during the 1600s. They loved it. The salty, savory flavor added depth to bland ship food. So they brought bottles back to England. But here's the thing. You couldn't buy Chinese fish sauce in London. It was expensive and hard to import. So British cooks started making their own versions with local ingredients. They tried everything: mushroom ketchup, walnut ketchup, oyster ketchup, anchovy ketchup. These weren't thick like modern ketchup. They were thin, dark, salty sauces for meat and stews. None of them had tomatoes yet. Tomatoes didn't show up in ketchup until the early 1800s in America. Here's why. Europeans thought tomatoes were poisonous. They're part of the nightshade family, same as deadly nightshade. For centuries, people grew them as ornamental plants, but didn't eat them. By the early 1800s, Americans figured out tomatoes were safe and started cooking with them. Someone had the idea to make a ketchup-style sauce using tomatoes instead of fish. The first known tomato ketchup recipe appeared in 1812, written by scientist James Mees. He called it Love Apple Catsup. His recipe was simple. Mash tomatoes, add spices, boil it down. No fish, no fermentation. Just cook tomatoes with salt and spices. But early tomato ketchup had a problem. It spoiled quickly. Tomatoes have high water content and low acidity compared to fermented sauces. Without preservation, it would mold within weeks. To fix this, producers added chemical preservatives. Sodium benzoate was common. Some added coal tar dyes for color. The result kept longer, but tasted medicinal and looked artificial. Then came Henry Heinz. In 1876, Heinz introduced his version of tomato ketchup. His innovation wasn't the recipe, it was the process. Instead of chemical preservatives, Heinz used ripe tomatoes with higher natural acidity. He cooked the mixture longer to reduce water. And he added more vinegar and sugar to create an environment where bacteria couldn't grow. The result was a ketchup that didn't need chemical preservatives. It was shelf-stable, bright red, and had that balanced sweet tangy flavor we recognize today. Heinz bottled it in clear glass so customers could see the quality. That transparency built trust. By the early 1900s, Heinz dominated the market. His formula became the standard. Now here's the kicker. Modern ketchup is made the same way Heinz did it 150 years ago. Tomatoes, vinegar, sugar, salt, and spices. The process starts with tomatoes, not fresh ones from a farm stand. Industrial ketchup uses tomato paste, concentrated puree, mixed with vinegar, usually distilled white vinegar and sugar, lots of it. A standard bottle contains about 20% sugar by weight. That's roughly 4 grams per tablespoon. More sugar than in the same amount of ice cream. The mixture is heated to around 90 degrees Celsius and cooked until it reaches the right consistency. Spices are added: onion powder, garlic powder, sometimes cloves or cinnamon. The cooking process breaks down tomato cell walls, creating that smooth texture. High sugar and vinegar content creates an acidic environment. Bacteria can't survive. Once it reaches the right thickness, it's pumped into bottles while hot. Bottles are sealed immediately. As it cools, it creates a vacuum seal that keeps it shelf-stable for months. No fermentation, no fish, no waiting. Just tomatoes, sugar, vinegar, and heat. But wait, even though modern ketchup has nothing to do with fermented fish, it still carries that Chinese name. Ketchup became ketchup in English. The word stuck even as the recipe completely transformed. And here's what gets me. Ketchup has gone full circle. That original fermented fish sauce? It's making a comeback. High-end restaurants use fish sauce as a secret ingredient. Some chefs add drops of fish sauce to tomato dishes to boost umami. So in a sense, fish sauce never really left. It just stopped being called ketchup. So, let's go back to that diner. You're dipping your fries in ketchup, that sweet, tangy, red sauce. But now you know it started as fermented fish guts in the 17th century China. You know, British sailors brought the idea to England but couldn't import the real thing. You know, Americans made it with tomatoes, which people thought were poisonous. You know, Henry Heinz figured out how to make it shelf-stable without chemicals. You know, modern ketchup is 20% sugar and contains no fermentation, no fish, nothing from the original recipe except the name. The next time you squeeze that red bottle, you'll taste 300 years of substitution and transformation. You'll taste how a Chinese fish sauce became an American icon by accident. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there's something you'd like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.